China and the Eurasian world economy. Beyond China's central role in East Asia was its economic interaction with the wider world of Eurasia generally. On the one hand, China's remarkable economic growth, taking place during the Tang and Song dynasties, could hardly be contained within China's borders and clearly had a major impact throughout Eurasia. On the other hand, China was recipient as well as donor in the economic interactions of the Third Wave era, and its own economic achievements owed something to the stimulus of contacts with the larger world. Spillovers: China's impact on Eurasia. One of the outcomes of China's economic revolution lay in the diffusion of its many technological innovations to peoples and places far from East Asia, as the movements of traders, soldiers, slaves, and pilgrims conveyed Chinese achievements abroad. Chinese techniques for producing salt by solar evaporation spread to the Islamic world and later to Christian Europe. Papermaking, known in China since the Han Dynasty, spread to Korea and Vietnam by the 4th century CE, to Japan and India by the 7th, to the Islamic world by the 8th, to Muslim Spain by 1150, to France and Germany in the 1300s, and to England in the 1490s. Printing, likewise, a Chinese invention, rapidly reached Korea, where movable type became a highly developed technique, and Japan as well. Both technologies were heavily influenced by Buddhism, which accorded religious merit to the reproduction of sacred texts. The Islamic world, however, highly valued handwritten calligraphy and generally resisted printing as impious until the 19th century. The adoption of printing in Europe was likewise delayed because of the absence of paper until the 12th century. Then movable type was reinvented by Johannes Gutenberg in the 15th century, although it is unclear whether he was aware of Chinese and Korean precedents. With implications for mass literacy, bureaucracy, scholarship, the spread of religion, and the exchange of information, papermaking and printing were Chinese innovations of revolutionary and global dimensions. Chinese technologies were seldom simply transferred from one place to another. More often, a particular Chinese technique or product stimulated innovations in more distant lands in accordance with local needs. For example, as the Chinese formula for gunpowder, invented around 1000, became available in Europe, together with some early and simple firearms, these innovations triggered the development of cannons in the early 14th century. Soon cannons appeared in the Islamic world, and by 1356 in China itself, which first used cast iron rather than bronze in their construction. But the highly competitive European state system drove the gunpowder revolution much further and more rapidly than in China's imperial state. Chinese textile, metallurgical, and naval technologies likewise stimulated imitation and innovation all across Eurasia. An example is the magnetic compass, a Chinese invention eagerly embraced by mariners of many cultural backgrounds as they traversed the Indian Ocean. In addition to its technological influence, Chinese prosperity during the Song dynasty greatly stimulated commercial life and market-based behavior all across the Afro-Eurasian trading world. China's products, silk, porcelain, lacquerware, found eager buyers from Japan to East Asia and everywhere in between. The immense size and wealth of China's domestic economy also provided a ready market for hundreds of commodities from afar. For example, the lives of many thousands of people in the spice-producing islands of what is now Indonesia were transformed as they came to depend on Chinese consumers' demands for their products. 100 million Chinese people, wrote historian William McNeill, increasingly caught up within a commercial network, buying and selling to supplement everyday's livelihood, made a significant difference to the way other human beings made their livings throughout a large part of the civilized world. Such was the ripple effect of China's economic revolution. On the receiving end, China as economic beneficiary. If Chinese economic growth and technological achievements significantly shaped the Eurasian world of the Third Wave era, that pattern of interaction was surely not a one-way street, for China too was changed by its engagement with the wider world. During this period, for example, China had learned about the cultivation and processing of both cotton and sugar from India. From Vietnam, around 1000, China gained access to the new fast-ripening and drought-resistant strains of rice that made a highly productive rice-based agriculture possible in the drier and more rugged regions of southern China. This marked a major turning point in Chinese history, as the frontier region south of the Yangtze River grew rapidly in population, overtaking the traditional centers of Chinese civilization in the north. In the process, the many non-Chinese peoples of the area were painfully overwhelmed by Chinese military forces and by the migration of at least 1 million Han Chinese farmers by 1400. Some of them were attracted by new economic opportunities, while others were forcibly relocated by the Chinese state, intent on thoroughly integrating the South into Chinese civilization. Technologically as well, China's extraordinary burst of creativity owed something to the stimulus of cross-cultural contact. Awareness of Persian windmills, for example, spurred the development of a distinct but related device in China. Printing arose from China's growing involvement with the world of Buddhism, which put a spiritual premium on the reproduction of the Buddha's image and of short religious texts that were carried as charms. It was in Buddhist monasteries during the Tang Dynasty that the long-established practice of printing with seals was elaborated by Chinese monks into woodblock printing. The first printed book, in 868 CE, was a famous Buddhist text, the Diamond Sutra. A further transforming impact of Chinese involvement with a wider world derived from its growing participation in Indian Ocean trade. By the Tang Dynasty, thousands of ships annually visited the ports of southern China and settled communities of foreign merchants. Arabs, Persians, Indians, Southeast Asians turned some of these cities into cosmopolitan centers. Buddhist temples, Muslim mosques and cemeteries, and Hindu phallic sculptures graced the skyline of Quanzhou, a coastal city in southern China. Occasionally, the tensions of cultural diversity erupted in violence, such as the massacre of tens of thousands of foreigners in Canton during the 870s, when Chinese rebel forces sacked the city. Indian Ocean commerce also contributed much to the transformation of southern China from a subsistence economy to one more heavily based on producing for export. In the process, merchants achieved a degree of social acceptance not known before, including their frequent appointment to high-ranking bureaucratic positions. Finally, much beloved stories of the monkey god, widely popular even in contemporary China, derived from Indian sources, transmitted by Indian Ocean commerce.